As we're waiting for a few more folks to join us, I would like to just talk about SCORE just for a few moments, and then I will introduce our speaker. In case you aren't familiar with SCORE, there are three important things that SCORE does. One is to provide information, which you'll find on the website. There are a lot of templates you can download, blogs you can read, videos you can watch, all kinds of great information. So I do encourage you to go to the score.org website and look for things that of interest for you and your business. We offer workshops and for training. As you are here today, I know you're familiar with that concept. We'll be running a few more workshops between now and about mid-December, and then we'll be starting again around the second week of January. So I encourage you to check those out. We've got a lot of really great topics in the next couple of weeks, as well as today. The most important thing that SCORE does, however, is the mentoring. Our mentors are free and confidential. They're volunteers that come to us with a wide variety of experience that they want to share with those in the small business community. And we work with folks that are trying to decide if small business ownership is right for them, with the folks that are planning and getting ready to start, and we work with those that are already in business. And we have mentors that have backgrounds in numerous business topics. And if for any reason we can't find someone within the chapter, we will reach out to the district or the national level to find somebody aligned with the concerns you may have or with your business. A first time session will be a get to know you. They want to know what your goals are, what your challenges are, and help you formulate a plan to get you there, to get you past those challenges and reach those goals. So I certainly encourage you to reach out to a mentor. Businesses with a mentor are more successful. You can go to the score.org website, and there's a blue box where you can put in your zip code, and that will match you to the closest chapter. And then that chapter will, there'll be an information sheet that you fill out, and they will match you as close as they can to a mentor within that chapter. So it's a very easy process. Score.org, little blue box, put in your zip code. Very much easy. We are recording today, so we will have this recording on the website in approximately 24 to 48 hours. That's gonna, and I'll put in the chat the location, and I'll talk about it again at the end. But it is the score.org/Boston. It's under the local workshops tab. There's a pull down for previously recorded, and you'll be able to find it there and watch it if there's something you didn't quite catch on today's presentation. We are going to interact through chat today. So if you have questions that you want asked of our presenter, I will definitely read those out at the appropriate time. So I want to welcome our presenter today. She's a first-time presenter for our SCORE chapter, and we're very excited to have her here, Majeen Lorth, and we want to welcome you. Thank you, Majeen.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. I know that this topic is near and dear to all of us because it is a constant in our lives. So I'm happy that I can join you and share some strategies for you as you navigate life transitions as a woman business owner. So we will get started. I am Majeen Lorth. I'm the founder of Transitions Well Done, a coaching practice where I support women who are navigating both life and career transitions, and you'll hear more about me in a bit. So today I want to welcome you all, and the topic would be how to handle life transitions gracefully. It's to provide an overview of strategies and tools that you can use as you are building your business. We'll cover handling change positively, staying focused on priorities, asking for support, and more. Our goal for you today is to walk away feeling empowered and with an action plan of what you're gonna tackle next in your life and in your business. So again, a little bit about me. I am a veteran of nonprofit, working in the nonprofit field. I've worked in the nonprofit field for 20 years, and I've been a nonprofit leader. I have been a mental health counselor. And for the past 4.5 years, I have been a coach. And a year ago, launched my practice Transitions Well Done, as I mentioned earlier, where I work to support women of color who are navigating life significant transitions in both their career and in general their life. And today we will be focusing on that topic, and I will welcome any questions that you have and engagement in the chat. Please feel free to ask questions to stop me if anything is not making sense, and we'll go from there. So I want to start with what you want. If you could think about what made you decide to join the SCORE talk today. For many of you, you might be looking to reestablish alignment between who you were and the many demands placed on your time, work, family, and maybe where you want to go next. You may want to be re-examining priorities after a devastating personal event. That's typically a challenging time for most of us when we've experienced devastating events in our lives that could trigger a transition. You may be recalibrating your assumptions. Maybe you've taken some time away from work and you're re-entering the workforce, or maybe you are in the transition of building your business, moving from 9 to 5 to building your own business. Maybe you're ready for what's next. You have this internal clock that's telling you that there is something next that's happening for you, and you're here today to think about what's next for you. If there's anything that I missed and what you want to take away or what brought you here today, please put them in the chat. I'll be happy to hear them. Teresa, if you don't mind, if folks are putting things in the chat, let me know. So basically, it's what is happening for you currently? What change are you experiencing now? And what might be coming up for you? And where are you feeling stuck? And where are you feeling uncertain and want to know how to move forward? You like to move forward and you like to build the momentum and be equipped to move forward, but yet still feeling stuck. So a mix of different reasons might have brought you here today. I like to use this design squiggle by Damien Newman, who is a designer, and I believe back in the 90s came up with this design process to help his collaborators know what it is for him as a designer in the design process. And the reason why I like to use this when I talk about change and transition is because I think it outlines really where we are and where we would like to be. So right now, many of you might find yourself in the noise, uncertainty, right? Where there's the beginning, where there's a lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainties, a lot of feeling like you're drowning, right? And then while you're in that space, what you're hoping for is clarity and focus. What you're yearning for is clarity and focus, and yet it is not available to you in that moment. And in this design squiggle, it shows that it takes us some time to get out of that mess, that chaos, to get to a point where things starts to get clear for you. And in this design, because usually it's a product that a designer would be putting out, there's an end to it, right? But in our life as human beings, at the end of that straight line, there might be yet another messy, another noisy, uncertain area coming up for us. So it's like a repeated loop for us because change is happening at such a fast rate for us. There's so many things happening simultaneously in our lives that sometimes it's hard to pause in that straight line where you're finding clarity and focus before the next chaos, the next messy part of life start over again. So for anyone who's feeling like they're in the beginning stage where things are all balled up together, unsure where you'll find that line, that stretch line, you are not alone. We are all facing some type of change or transition in our lifetime. And so what I want you to take away is that it is possible to get out of that, to start gaining insight. And you can see in the squiggle line, as you start to get to clarity, there's some insights that start to show up. As to insight that will show you where the patterns are and how to break out of the patterns. And please let me know if you've seen this before and if it's resonating for you as a metaphor for how we experience the process of change and transition. Now, I'll pause for a minute and ask you all for a true or false question. So my true or false question for you is it true or false that change and transition are the same? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. True or false? Change and transition are the same. Let me know in the comments.
We have some false. I have several saying false.
That's great. You're all in the know. They are not the same. They are different. And if anyone would like to put in the chat what they think is the difference.
We don't have anyone brave today. Oh, here we go. Change can be messy. Transition has a path forward. I think transition is a result to understanding and adapting to the change.
Thank you for those who shared. So and I will be talking more about that, but if I want to take a step back and understand what our focus is for today. Recognizing resistance, as we've been talking about, change and transition are different. And so when we are experiencing change, there is resistance to that. There's often resistance to change, and why that is. Oftentimes, to be able to navigate change, we need to build resiliency. And as women business owners, we have that. Most of us have that innate to us. But oftentimes when we're in it, we forget that that is something that we have in our toolbox to use to help us navigate. Another thing I like to talk about is creating a transition, your own transition hub, which is your own set of tools, strategies, skills that you can use for each transition that comes your way. A big part of what we're talking about today is managing your time and finding balance, because there are a lot of things happening as business owners, as women, in our family, in our businesses, in our world, here at home and overseas. So how do you find the time? How do you manage the time that you have, and how do you find balance? And leading effectively as business owners, as leaders, how do you effectively lead so that you feel secure in your role as you lead your business forward? So here we are, we're going to be talking about the difference between change and transition. Now, the percentages doesn't have to be exact, but it's just a graph to show you how they are different. And as some of you have said, change is situational. A big difference is that change is situational and change is external. But transition is psychological. Transition is the internal process that we go through when we're experiencing change. Change happens very quickly. And yet because we are internally processing that change, transition takes time, and it can be slow, and it can happen over a period of months, years even. So it's a process that takes time. It often takes some time for us to even recognize that what we're experiencing is a transition, that we're in the midst of a transition. oftentimes what we're focused on, we tend to focus on the external piece, which is the change, right? We're focusing on what's happening in our outward world and not taking the time to reflect on what's happening inwardly for us and reflect on that and how that may be impacting how we're seeing the change. And so the key today is talk a little bit about change, but spend most of the time talking about the transition process and what does it look like for you and your business. So again, understanding change versus transition. Change refers to the external developments and variation in our surroundings. For example, the process of moving from one state to another. The move sometimes for us is hard, and sometimes we're looking forward. It's something that we've been building towards, right? And then we find that the move is happening, but then we notice that there's some tension, there's some conflict coming up for us, and not sure why that's happening and how to manage that. And so then the strategy would be to look internally, because transition is the psychological process that we go through to adapt to the change. It involves a period of adjusting and coming to terms with whatever the new situation may be. Now, let's talk about the evolution of change. Change through the years have evolved, right? The pace of change is it's ever changing. The nature of change is always unpredictable, and it's constantly changing, and for us unclear as to how often we're going to experience change. And then let's talk about the psychological toll that having to change so frequently have on us. And if we look at how we are currently in our modern day, there's a profound implication on loneliness due to tech advances. So when I'm talking about change here, it's just change on a global level and in our world and how we experience it. And so it always takes a toll on us. And more nowadays, if you can experience what it was like doing if you can remember, and I'm sure many of us can because it wasn't so long ago, just how lonely it was, both in terms of how we had to recalibrate to experience that, but also how even the tech advances that helped us stay connected also made us feel isolated. Now, there is this great book that I read. It's called Tomorrow Mind by Martin Seligman and Gabriela Rosen Kellerman. And it talks about the evolution of change, and it uses the metaphor, it uses steamship and sailboat and kayakers, whitewater kayakers, as how we evolve through change. So in terms of career trajectory, over the last, several centuries, if you think about it, your career trajectory in the 1800s was like a steamship, right? It was fire up the engine and full speed ahead. Most often you had one track of where your career was going to go. Now, if we move into the 1900s, then you see that technology has advanced, and it's more, your career trajectory is more like a sailboat, right? It requires skillful tracking to make sure you're getting close to where you want to be in your career. And now in our day right now, it's more like whitewater kayakers, right? It's fast paced. There's always something coming at you, and you're responding to an ever change flow of change coming at you, and not knowing how to navigate that, but also trusting that you have the skills to navigate the rough waters of whitewater kayaking. So just to paint a picture for you of what the evolution of career trajectory has been, and in the midst of what's happening in our world, the technology advances we've had in our world. And if anyone would like to mention in the comment if they find themselves feeling like, whitewater kayakers, having to experience the changes they've been through in their career, please let us know. And think about how much time we spend pivoting in our career, right? We are often choosing to develop new skills, and there's often that expectation that you have to, right? And always maybe sometimes feeling like you're behind if there's a skill that you don't have yet. And we're often switching careers. Nowadays, you don't have to spend 20 years, 30 years in a career. You can shift. Actually, it's almost as if it is expected that you will be shifting career in the next, 3 to 5 years or 5 to 10 years, you'll be shifting your career, starting a business. Many of us have started our own businesses, right? And so we're doing that in the midst of our own personal life shifting and pivoting as well. Becoming a parent, becoming an empty nester, all of these things are happening simultaneously. Taking a new role, there's always like the next move in your career that you're thinking about, thinking strategically about what's the next move for you for your career. And then we talked about moving locations as well. So we're very fluid, for sure, more fluid than we were before. And so we're having to navigate all of that at once. And so these pivots often lead us to reevaluate our priorities, our values, and what makes sense for us individually and also for our family as well. Now, I wanted to take an example of possibly a journey of change. For some of you, this might resonate because that might be where you are now. That might be what your journey looked like. And for us, for others, it may be different. But think about if it was someone here or myself leaving a corporate job to launch a new business. The learning curve that takes, right? It's not that you're new to your profession, to the professional workplace, but starting a new business, I always say it's like starting a business is like learning a new language, because there are so many parts, there are so many different languages to learn about being a business owner. So you're learning to adapt to being responsible for all aspects of your business. And then learning to gain traction, establishing your customer base and reputation. How do you do that? That's learning, that's pivoting. And as you are designing how you do that and reevaluating, you're having to pivot. And if you own a business where you have employees, that's also reorienting your employees as well. And then you get to a point where maybe business is working well and you want to expand. So what's the next level and how do you market your new offerings? And then you get to a point of like, long-term success. What does that look like for me? How am I achieving work-life balance and being in profit in my business? So those are different pivoting aspects within your journey of change. And that's just within your business, starting a business, being a leader in a business, right? And that doesn't take into consideration the next slide, where you're balancing work and family. You're having to access funding for your work. You are coming up against imposter syndrome, right? You're starting somewhere new, and yes, you have what it takes, but then there are times when there are doubts coming up for you. Wellness and self-care. Health is important and you want to prioritize that. You want to have the energy that it requires to run a sustainable business. So, and then you have lack of support network, right? Some of us more than others, right? Women of color in business have less of a support network than their counterparts. So all of this is happening as well. So you can just imagine, well, you don't have to imagine. I will clarify that. I can understand, and as a business owner myself, have lived through all of this. And so that's one of the reasons why it's important to understand how we go through, how we navigate transition, and what's the best strategies to do that, so you can have more confidence and more ease as they continue to come your way. Now, one thing I want to say is that not every change comes with a transition. When there's a life event, you can choose to just change, or you can choose to transition. When you choose to change, you're focusing on the external factors. When you choose to transition, you are making the decision to go through the internal process of transition, which we'll talk about soon. But I wanted to talk about different life events that could come that could trigger a transition. And I say trigger a transition because, again, these life events may happen. You may not go through a full transition, right? And there could be false start to a transition as well, where you think making that move will be the transition, but then you get to the next step, you realize I never let go of where I was. So there's a whole process to it. So some life events that could trigger a transition is a divorce, death of a spouse or loved one in your family, job of loss or change, an illness or disability, retirement, or your own internal process of, I know that I have the potential for more and I'm looking for more. You wanting to step more into growth and fulfillment. That is a developmental event that could happen that can trigger a transition as well. And so there are various ways to look at it. And I want to make it clear that not every change comes with a transition. So going through a transition, you're making that choice to go through the internal process. And the challenges that come with specifically when you face transition is, I put starting a family, but it could be anything in the family structure. Getting remarried, becoming an empty nester, and just your family responsibilities, whether it's in your immediate family or your extended family. There might be different things happening within your family structure that becomes a challenge because you're navigating your transition. And other times it may be someone in your family who's going through their own transition that triggers your transition too. So those are all things to consider as well. And then lack of confidence. Oftentimes we stay in the stuck part because we are, and we'll talk about that later on, we are unsure, uncertain about what the next step looks like, or if we have, as we say, have what it takes to take the next step. And then another piece is access to capital. For women business owners, that's often a stuck place because you might already know you're ready for the next step, but you don't have the necessary capital to take the steps that you are envisioning for yourself. Now, I've been talking about the transition process, the internal process. In my work, I use William Bridges' transition model. And so this model is from William Bridges, and he started transition work back in the 1970s. He used his own life, going from being a professor and being a professor as his career, transitioning to a business owner, his wife dying, and how that triggered his own transition. So in this model, transition starts with an end. And through that end, you go through the neutral zone to get to your new beginning. And ending mean letting go of the old identity and making a transition out of what currently exists. So you're letting go of patterns, behaviors, attitude that you have about your current situation. And that is oftentimes where we get stuck, because we're not necessarily aware that we have to let go of those ideas, even dreams that you may have had about your current situation. You have to let those go before you can fully step into the neutral zone, which also called the emptiness, right? Or the liminal space, the unknown. Those are different words for the neutral zone. And it's a time of confusion and distress as you are starting to let go of the old self and entering into the new reality of your new world. And the new beginning is renewal. You can look at it as a rebirth. Now, if we were to look at the transition model as the seasons, right? You think of ending as the fall, right? When the leaves are changing colors and the trees are shedding old leaves, right? And then think of the neutral zone as winter, where we tend to withdraw, where we tend to feel more isolated, right? And then think of the new beginning as spring, where we are starting to show new growth. So that's another way you can think about the transition model. And we're gonna go by it one by one. This is really talking about the letting go process. Oftentimes we have resistance to change, and often it comes from the fear of the unknown, because change brings uncertainty. And that's also where, when a life event occurs and you decide to change rather than transition, because transitioning will mean that you are ready to face the unknown, ready to be in the uncertainties. So fear of the unknown is a big reason why we resist change. Loss of control also. And if you think about stepping in from, the 9 to 5 to starting a business, that was letting go of something. You've had to have let go of some ideas, some patterns, some behaviors, maybe belief you had about yourself to step into being a business owner. And losing control, like, this is what I used to know, and this is what I knew and did well for however many years. And now this is changing, and I feel like I don't have control anymore. So those are certainly some things that we go through. And then we go through threat to comfort, loss of social relationships. We may resist change because we tend to conform to group norms and culture, and starting in a new culture, even starting a new culture in your own business. How do I do that? And what would that look like? And how does the new culture align with my values? Personality conflicts, and some of us are more geared to staying in the status quo, and it might take some internal conflict if you're stepping into the unknown. So those are some reasons, or some things that come up when change is coming up and you're resisting the change. And again, it's the feelings, the action, and the thoughts. We're still talking about the beginning stage of transitions, right? Which is ending. So think about it in these three categories: what feelings, what actions, what thoughts that you have and you need to let go of in order to start that transition process, right? Start with that ending before you move into the neutral zone. And oftentimes there are certain things we've dreamed of, right? There's always a way that we thought things will look like, and now it's no longer the case. And how are you letting go of those feelings and thoughts and action that you thought you had for yourself to move through that transition? Oh, before I go back, before I move forward, I would love to hear from you all what feelings come up for you when you think of transitions, or what feelings coming up for you right now as we talk about stepping into the unknown, experiencing uncertainty, and navigating transitions. If you could please share in the comment.
We have overwhelming, scarcity, fear shows up, imposter syndrome, fear of failing, fear of the unknown, fear of failure. Can you go back to the previous slide? Someone's asking. Yeah.
Is it this one?
I'm going to guess yes. Reluctance, I'm also hearing or seeing in the chat. Fear of success.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That is a big one.
Yeah. Finances, lots of fear that I won't make enough money to survive. Fear of the unknown, stuck.
Right.
what to tackle first. I think that's called, yeah, overwhelmed. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And I think, most of us can relate to all these feelings. And transitions come with a lot of fear. And we like to have control. We like to know, because we're dependent on those decisions that we and our family, maybe even if you're a single person, you're still your own finances are dependent on that decision. And it's a big decision to make. So yes, it's an emotional roller coaster, right? Feeling unsure about the future and the unknown path ahead. It's not a path you've gone through before, right? Or maybe it is. Maybe it's your second venture, right? But there's still some things that are new about it that is unknown, that you are unclear about. Fear, experiencing anxiety or distress about the risks and challenges. Right. What are the risks here? And I've heard about heard what you say about fear, financial risks that are at stake when you make some decisions as business owners. Loneliness, right? It can be isolating, especially when we're working in, virtual world, right? You're a solopreneur and you're working, you have your head down doing all the work. You feel like all the uncertainties, all the fears, you're the only one experiencing them because you're in this work alone. And that can bring up even more isolation from folks. Maybe even your family may know that you're building a business, but they don't know the ins and out of what's happening for you, right? You can explain it all you want, all you want, but the day-to-day operations and the responsibilities of being a business owner may be yours to experience alone. So it could definitely feel lonely. And then, the other part of it, right? The good feeling of the emotional roller coaster is courage. Courage that you found strength to step out and, to start something new, to face transition and its difficulties. Being happy and excited that you're starting something new. So it comes with good feelings and also feelings that are really hard to process. So making sure that you're thinking about all the different feelings too. And there are times when the negative feelings will probably come and be more present than the positive ones. But remembering that, and we'll again talk about it later, like your why for starting and what your goals were for starting or being in business, not even just starting, for starting this. So those are things to keep in mind as well. So this is a quote: "We must let go of life we have planned so as to accept the one that is waiting for us." So again, it's a quote to emphasize the idea of transition starts with an end, and you have to let go in order for you to step fully into what is waiting for you. Ending what was. And because the letting go is so hard, let go with gratitude. And you have grown and learned so much to get you to where you are now. And this process, this start might be hard, but you are in for more growth and more learning. And have closure conversations. If you're able to, have closure conversations. And that is also helping with the isolation piece, to know that, you have people you can talk through about what it is that you're ending. One of the things that William Bridges talks a lot about is rituals, right? Planning a ritual, because we have lost rituals. There are times, we can say in the beginning of times, when there were tribes and communities where people, when someone is starting new, before they start new, they go through a ritual of ending what was, right? So think about what that ritual for you could be, right? It doesn't have to be like go get lost in the woods. But it could be something that's meaningful to you, but still in the process of you are being intentional about this is what I need to let go of. This is these are the patterns, these are the behaviors, these are the attitude. This is a dream I once had. I have to let go in order for me to move forward to what's waiting for me. And so what would be a ritual for you? Think about that. And another way to think about it is letting go does not mean giving up, but rather accepting that there are limits to how much we can control, right? So if you're maybe 1 foot in, 1 foot out, how much of it all can you control being one in, one out? Or just, do you have, in terms of your family responsibilities, are there things that you can delegate to someone else and not have control over, so that you can fully be present for your business? Or the other way around, are there things in your business that you can delegate to your staff so that you can step in and being there for your family? So different things to think about. And then after the ending, you're navigating the neutral zone, right? The neutral zone is sometimes what people say is chaos, can be chaotic, but think about the chaos being where creativity can take place. So you're stepping into the neutral zone where there's uncertainty, right? You're in the in-between, right? You have let go, you have let go, and now you are not sure what's coming, but you know something is coming. So how do you navigate that? And a lot of it is reflecting on your values and embracing the unknown, right? And I know some people have some thoughts about embracing the unknown and how hard it can be, given that there's so much at stake. And really realizing that the unknown, and that unknown, as you sit in it, you also have space to envision a new future for yourself. You have space to give yourself grace for how far you've come to where you are right now. You have space to focus on you and your self-care. So it doesn't have to be this tension-filled time, but it can be a time for intentionality, and also a time for new growth to sprout. So that's and all of this involves a mindset shift, right? It involves shifting your mindset from, oh, I'm in this in-between space. I'm in this space where there's a lot of chaos because I don't know, a lot of uncertainty, and I don't know what's going to happen next, to shifting it to opportunities. It's time for new opportunities. It's time for me to create something new, to think of it as something new. And once you step into the unknown, as I started to say, is visualizing what the possibilities are, embracing the new, embracing change, taking it one step at a time, because a lot of what came up with how you, the feelings and emotions that come up with for you when you think of transition is feeling overwhelmed. So it doesn't have to be, I'm going to figure it all out, but you're going to take it one step at a time. And focus on progress. What's working well? What have you done so far that you've seen progress, you've seen results? And if you don't know, I strongly recommend talking to your supporters. And maybe there are people in your family, maybe people at SCORE, your SCORE mentor, that could help you think through of the progress you've had. Because when we're in the weeds as business owners, and I know this myself, having been through it and sometimes still navigating that, it's hard to see what progress I've made, because to me, if I'm not at 100%, I'm not there at all, right? So sometimes it helps us to reach out to someone else and say, can you help me think of what progress you've seen in my work? As someone who's objective, can you help me think through of what you've seen as progress in my work? And then to see how, like, oh, I've been thinking this whole time that I'm not making any, or I've just been in this unknown phase where there isn't any progress, and someone else who you trust could tell you that here's what I've seen happening, and maybe that will help reassure you that yes, you're still working towards that end goal, but there's been progress. And again, it goes back to surrounding yourself with support. And that support is not someone who thinks exactly like you, but someone who will give you feedback that will not only reassure you that you're getting the support you need and you're doing important work and meaningful work, but that you are on your way to achieving what your goals are. One huge thing about navigating the unknown is befriending uncertainty. And it's because it allows you space to reframe your perspective and see things in a new light. I don't say this lightly, because I myself have been in a place where I'm wondering, did I pick the right business for myself? Did I make the right decision for myself? I don't know what's coming up next. Like, how do I do that? And what I found is that when I've been able to think about the uncertainty as my creative space, so shifting my mindset to thinking of the uncertainty as this is a creative space. And that's also one of the things that I work with when I work with leaders, is think about like what's happening in your change management, right? Where are there uncertainties? How can you use, your skills, expertise, and knowledge to create something out of that uncertain space? So that's something to really think about. A way to, how, if you were to reframe the word uncertainty for you, to put more growth, more possibilities into it, what would you rename it as? And then when you go through the ending, you go through the neutral zone, you get to renewal, where you are able to reimagine yourself. Think about who you want to become after the transition, your future self. What does that look like? You're able to see that. Set new goals for yourself, or reframe goals from before so that it fits your new reality. And always think about taking small steps, because when we think of it like, I need to do all of the things in the next year, it becomes so overwhelming and it gets us stuck. It paralyzes us. And so how do you break it down into smaller steps? And if that's not going to help you in your new reality, maybe that's something to pivot, think about doing differently. So the renewal space is, again, if you think about it as springtime, the sun is out, you see new growth, you see there are possibilities for you, and you are recalibrating into your new reality. And then, so now we're going to look into strategies for thriving during transitions, right? It's acknowledging the barriers faced and developing resilience. Because through resilience, we're able to adapt through change. This is part of what we've been talking about, is seeing uncertainty as opportunities for growth, looking into mentorship and thinking about your support network, peer support network, networking, working with folks who may be in the same industry with you, people you can learn from, as well as people you can share your knowledge and expertise with, and utilizing strategic planning and goal setting to navigate transitions, right? And I put that in there to, again, share that the intentionality that it takes to be aware of where you're at in navigating transitions, right? When you're in a phase of feeling overwhelmed, maybe getting a sense of what goals do I have and how can I think about it strategically, and then the mindset and self-care practices for emotional and mental well-being as well, because your business, your family, your life, it's that one life and that one opportunity we have here to be present. And so how do we make sure we take care of ourselves, right? Because all of these things that we were talking about can take a toll on us, right? And we talked about feeling overwhelmed, feeling isolated, feeling like the ground is not stable under our feet. And so that takes a lot of mental fitness to navigate through. So it's very important to introduce self-care practices. Define strategies for transition. Define your pace. What pace is going to be helpful to you? And how do you do that, right? If you could reflect back on a time that you went through a transition, not that it's going to be the same, but what about it? What about that pace of that transition? What can you take from that, right? And how can you be aware of what works for you and what could have been better, right? Because it takes time. I think oftentimes we live in a fast-paced world, as we've talked about the pace of change and the unpredictability of change. We often want to condense everything into, a short time, but we saw in the beginning that transition takes time. And really, it could take just months to realize that you are in the starting phase of a transition. It can really take that long to become aware of what's shifting for you internally. And so being mindful of pacing yourself. And we, again, continue to leverage your support. If you work for a company, there are sometimes EAPs, employment assistance programs, that can help you figure out what resources that you need. Focus inward. This is the reflection phase that happens throughout the transition process, right? Because in the ending phase, you're thinking of what is it that I need to let go of? What is it that I need to let go of? And what in the uncertainty phase, the neutral zone, what new possibilities can emerge from this, to then envision your future self. So then you're moving yourself through that, and you could definitely ask for support, because that's not something we go through alone. Because as we're experiencing our transition, our family members, our team members, our staff, our clients can be impacted by that, especially our family. So again, that's why it's important to pace yourself through it and leverage your support and reflect on what's happening for you. So in the beginning, I talked about creating your transitions hub, meaning, a tool, a roadmap sort of, or a toolbox for you as you navigate various transitions in your life. And it encompasses many of the things that we've been talking about here. So think of it as something that you can, that's mobile, that you can take with you. And you continue to add to it. It evolves as you evolve through transitions, right? And you add tools, strategies, skills that you've learned, mindset that you've learned to move through transitions. And that's your hub that you're able to take through with you. And I want to go back to resisting change, because that's always a big piece for us. And that's part of of you creating your hub, is self-awareness, right? We say that change is hard for us, right? When we make that statement, what about change is hard for you? What about change can you think of that makes it hard for you? And also, has it always been hard? Oftentimes we think about what maybe we had a bad experience with a transition before, and we immediately assume that this one is going to be bad too. So think about how you can shift your mindset and what self-awareness that can come from that reflection. One thing I would say about mindset shifts, that's also something that comes with time, right? It's not something that you snap your fingers and it happens. It require a lot of time where you're thinking about the patterns and behaviors and attitudes that you have regarding transition and change, right? What is it about it that brings up tension for you? Or what is it about the future that's causing the tension for you? So the mindset piece takes time as well, because we're conditioned, right? There's so many things that we're conditioned and we have to unlearn in order for us to shift our mindset. And again, the support systems is always there, because when there's a change coming for us, we tend, especially when it's something that where we know that we tend to resist, we go inward right now and maybe shut down. And so talking through what's happening for you, maybe again, if you have people in your network that you trust and you can talk to about what support system are you going to need. And I think that's also where accountability comes in as well. Have an accountability buddy that can help you think about, okay, if I see that, you say you want to move, you want to make that change, and how long do you need me to wait to see if there's anything moving? And how do you want me to help you think of, okay, it's been that many months, you said, and it's not happening. So always think about concrete ideas that you can come up for your support system so they can show up for you. Because sometimes we have the support system, but they don't know how to show up for you. So it's up to us to communicate that to them. And if we don't know how to communicate that, and that's where the other part, the resources come in, talk to your SCORE mentor, your peer support group, your networking group, coaching, different things like that could help you be able to communicate what the needs and wants are for you as you're navigating your transition. A big part of managing transition is cultivating resilience. Practicing self-compassion. We are really, we as business owners, we can be very critical of ourselves. As women, we can be very critical of ourselves. And that's because of, many societal expectations we've had put upon us, that we become so critical of our output, right? Like if I'm not putting that much out, then I'm not doing well. So having self-compassion, if I'm not able to move my team, my staff through this expansion, then that means I'm not doing anything right. So practice self-compassion. Again, reframing your thinking, taking care of your body. One thing I would say is that a lot of time our body respond first to the transition that we're going through before we can realize it mentally. So I would think a lot about what signs are coming up through your body for you, because it can be overwhelming, it can be stressful. Your body is responding to that stress, to that level of overwhelmingness that you're experiencing, that level of isolation that you're experiencing, and yet you're in the weeds, you're on the go. So what can you think of in terms of your body that's coming up for you, and yet you're not seeing the connection between what your body is telling you and what you're experiencing? One thing that I would talk about is developing skills like meditation, journaling, and breathing exercises, because our response to these things tend to be physiological, right? And so how do we take care of ourselves internally, as well as what we are navigating outwardly as well? Because it's often the same, right? Mind, body, soul, spirit, they're all connected. And so one way to take care of being energized or having the energy to go through all of this is taking care of yourself and taking time to do that. And that is cultivating resiliency, because in order to adapt, we need resiliency. And as I said before, that is something that it tends to be innate in most of us, right? And we often forget that is something we have, that's a skill that we already have. And how do you think of reaching deep into you to pull it out? Like, you think about, like, what have you managed before? What changes have you been able to manage before, and how you are now? There must have been some resiliency to have been able to manage that. And so how do you bring that in again, right? And effective leadership, decision making is a big part of effective leadership. And I want to talk about that because I know that there are some people with um, staff members in their businesses, and they're dealing with, or they might be leaders in organizations. If we ourselves as leaders or as business owners are having a hard time dealing with the change or dealing with the transition, imagine what the staff is. I think change is not the hard piece, is the transition piece. And that's the part that we're not talking about. Because to transition is to reorient yourself, right? And so if we are expanding a line, expanding your business in any way, making a big transition making a big change in the business, your staff may not be able to articulate what's happening internally for them, right? Just as you are having a hard time with it as well. So the conflict that sometimes comes up is not, maybe, yes, it's hard for them, they resist change as much as we do, but really communicating what that process looks like to them and helping them be part of the decision making would be helpful, right? And that comes to our own selves making that decision for ourselves of like, I am gonna bring in my staff and helping me build whatever is next for my business. And then our ability to delegate, right? We sometimes, especially as small business owners, we know our market, we know our work. And so when we get to a point where we're feeling stuck and we're having to pivot, you want to have control, right? It makes sense. And then we tend to have a harder time delegating because we're afraid we're going to lose control. We're afraid of, what if I hand this over to someone else and they don't do it as well as I do? But meanwhile, you're having to navigate this thing on a big scale, right? This change, this pivot on a big scale. And that's when you need to be able to delegate some things to others. And again, I understand needing to do it to with people you trust and is gonna take care of what is yours the same way that you would. Communicating clarity as well. The unknown for us, sometimes it's the lack of clarity, right, that comes with it. So as much as possible, communicating what is clear to you and maybe what's not unclear to you, and bringing your team on board and making that a space for them when they can help you come up with the clarity piece, right? It's all of these together that helps us become effective leaders, because we tend to want things to be clear from the beginning, or we think we're communicating effectively, and then finding, especially when we bring in the idea of we're going to go through a change management, and thinking that everyone is going to come on board and it's going to go perfectly, right? But again, as we've been talking about, all of us have to go through that through the phases of transition of what to let go, the neutral zone, and also the renewal phase as well. And that can be done in both, your personal life, but also in your business as you lead your team through a huge change management. So planning for your next chapter. I think some people said earlier that thinking of like what's next for them, not sure where to start, is something that's hard for them. It's a feeling that comes up and makes it hard for them to know what's next. So planning for your next chapter could include reflecting on past goals, what's the ideal future for yourself and your business, setting specific goals, making an action plan, and tracking progress. All of those things, again, happen not so much in a linear fashion as it is here, but more in a cyclical way as well, because you're reevaluating. Like, remember the design model we started with, like there's that chaos, uncertainty in the beginning as you're creating, as you're developing what's next for your next chapter. And it takes time to start getting the insights that you need to move to where you can create specific goals and make an action plan, right? And it's time consuming. It's time consuming, and often the pace of things is not going our way. The level of frustration that happens with being able to get to a point where you have an action step where you feel confident enough with that action plan to move forward, can be tension filled for yourself and for you and your team, maybe even your family. And so again, it's all about creating space and grace for yourself to move through these things, right? I'll use something that we often say in the doing time like this is like wait, how did I say it? I can't remember. Is it a sprint, not a marathon? I'm terrible with sayings, but you know what I'm getting at. It's just it takes time to get to that point. And I know that oftentimes it can be there can be a lot of societal pressure to get it right, but it's often done with more intentionality for it to get to a place where you're feeling comfortable and that it feels like you're being in business, you being with yourself, your authentic self within your business. All right, another piece, time management and work-life balance. Oh, shoot. I realized that we went over time.
Oh, that's okay. People haven't left, so you're welcome to keep going.
Oh no.
It's
I'm so
okay.
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Did you want to finish up?
Sure.
Yeah, no, people are still here, so they're still listening, and there's been a lot of positive comments coming through chat. So, but you might, I would consider, if people wanted to connect with you in case they do need to leave, can you put something in chat so that they can connect to you if they want to? And
Yeah,
then
sure.
and then
I
please
will
keep going.
So I will show you this for those who are still here. This is a way to get in contact with me. I am on Instagram and also LinkedIn, but also via email. And my website is the best way to reach out to me. And I'll also add it in the chat as well. So one of the things that we started talking about is time management and work-life balance, prioritizing self-care, setting boundaries, streamline and delegate, communicating your needs, and this repeated reminder to connect with your support network. There's often a lot of balls that we're juggling, and that's often the point of tension is how do I prioritize my time and make sure that I am connecting with both my work and my family and my own self. So it requires all of these things that is on the screen here, which is prioritizing yourself, communicating what your boundaries are, and delegating, and finding a support network that works for you. And these are all things that we know, but often are good for reminders: getting enough sleep, eating a nutritious food, regularly exercising, and practicing mindfulness. Those are all great things to keep in mind for self-care strategies. And again, if you cannot do it all, pick one that works for you, find a system that works for you and stick with it as much as possible. And it's okay if you need to pivot to something else. So it's the point of it is finding at least one way that you get to take care of yourself. If you're able to do it all, then that's perfect. So another reminder, self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. And building your support network, that looks like finding family and friends, mentors, and peer groups. And SCORE is a great resource for finding mentors. Networking is great to find peer groups that are either aligned with your values and or your business. So the key takeaways from today would be, again, defining your vision. Where you are now and where would you like to be? Recognizing limiting beliefs, which is where we tend to get where we're resisting change. Identifying what your strengths are, both in your personal life and also in your business. Oftentimes they're the same things, but there are times when they may be different. And so identifying what the strengths are, being open to change. We talk about being befriending uncertainty, paying attention to your feelings. It's, again, that awareness piece, because in order to understand where you're going, you need to be aware of where you are. And then taking consistent action. It doesn't always have to be all or nothing. Actually, it doesn't have to ever be all or nothing. It could just be one thing at a time, one action step at a time. And thank you all for whoever's stuck through. Thank you for staying. I did not realize I went over time. And for all of you who joined, thank you. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me to ask your questions. I'll be happy to answer it. And happy to offer more resources if you're interested. But again, thank you for your time.
Well, thanks, Najeen. I got to tell you that I'm going to share the chat with you after this, because you had so many insightful attendees today that I think you will be very pleased to read through all the wonderful things that they have said and their own input that I think you'll enjoy it. So thank you everyone for joining. I did include where you'll find the recording. Give me about 24 to 48 hours to get that posted. And we're very happy that Najeen was able to present today for our SCORE clients. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I look forward to reading the script.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.